I'm just reading. Go ahead, talk. I'm just reading.
If there's something that could ever be solved, or if there's something that you guys could ignore each other, because not everything.
Fresh information, according to the LAPD, the victim of the deadly shooting near the Beverly Center tonight is a friend of rapper Quando Rondo. The victim was ambushed by 3 men on Friday while getting gas. They claim that Lil Durk killed rappers on camera by killing Lil Pab, FBG Duck, and attempting to kill Quando Rondo, but there is now new evidence that shows how he did it. As his case develops, prosecutors are revealing more and more information about Durk's involvement, including the attempted murder of Quando. If you thought he was getting away with it, think again, because they have him in hot water. Check out the new footage we found that shows how Durk killed Lil P on November 7th. Durk was arrested by the authorities on October 24th for reportedly placing a bounty on fellow rapper Quando Rondo's head. The two had a falling out over Quando Rondo's participation in King Val being shot and killed, while Durk maintains his innocence. The case is only becoming more complex, and we recently learned of something that directly links him. This all comes down to his rap group, OTFL, which he founded in 2010 and stands for Only the Family. The police assert that the group is a criminal gang, claiming that Durk established it, killed M-Poob, and attempted to kill Quando Rondo through it. However, recent revelations suggest that they may not have been the only victims. In October, the police went after Durk's group on the 17th, approximately a week before he was caught, and they took 5 guys into custody. Cavaliers grant DeAndre Wilson Keith Jones. There are currently 2 separate lawsuits, one against Durk and one against those 5. But there is ample evidence that they were the ones who shot at Quando Rondo and M-Poob. For a while, no one knew if there was much evidence that Durk set the whole thing up. David Bryan and Asa Houston, the police say, were the shooters, and Durk was the mastermind behind it. There is alleged CCTV footage of the killing taking place. What has Durk got to do with all of this? Prosecutors claim that Lil Durk placed a financial limit on Quando Rondo's life. On August 19, 2022, in California, Lob and Rondo were ambushed at a gas station while they were enjoying the sunshine while driving around LA. They had no idea that they were being stalked and that their assassins were waiting for the right moment to strike. To put it another way, he placed a bounty on it, but before we discuss the new information that links him to the crime, it's probably important to note that he has already admitted to it. Well, take a look at this. About 8 months ago, Durk's unreleased song Bellow Hills was leaked. It was never officially released. And you'll see why the name itself is fairly incriminating, because Beverly Hills is in California. To make matters worse, Durk essentially confesses in the lyrics, so the first line of the song is causing traffic to spike. The worst of all is this bounty hunter who is prepared to crack down to get her off. We all agree that this is serious self-snitching, but there's more. Prosecutors are claiming that they have proof that the hitman used credit cards to book their flights from. Prosecutors claim that the 5 named defendants used cards connected to Durk and OTF to pay for a one-way flight from Chicago to San Diego and a hotel called the Sharon Universal Hotel in University City, California, in order to carry out the hit. Despite all of this, the prosecution recently disclosed that on August 18th, the day before the shooting, Durk and the defendant, Grant, flew to California on a private jet. They also allegedly purchased black ski masks for the hitman to wear during the shooting. Surveillance footage from the scene on the day of the shooting shows what appears to be Quando Rondo being followed by the hitman, while LPO was in a white BMW and a white Infiniti. Following their alleged escape from the scene and meeting at an In-N-Out burger joint to discuss how they were going to leave California and how they were going to get their money for the hit. The prosecution claims that 3 of the men left the white Infiniti and opened fire on Key's entourage after they had stopped for gas. This is another angle of the shooting that took place. The prosecution also claims that they then booked return flights back to Chicago using the same Durk-associated credit cards. Since the gang had escaped arrest for more than 2 years, they believed they had gotten away with it. However, the FBI was taking their time assembling the case, and now Durk and the other accused men are sitting in jail awaiting trial, which is not looking good. However, why exactly did they go to such lengths to kill Quando Rondo in the first place, and why did Durk kill Pab? King Von's reported motivation for Durk and the OTF gang's desire to eliminate Quando Rondo and L-Pab was to comprehend death. We must examine what occurred to Val on November 6, 2020, when King Von, then 26 years old, was shot and died outside of an Atlanta club. It's a little unclear, so let's clarify what we do know. King Von was like Durk's younger brother, and ever since then, people believe he has been doing everything in his power to exact revenge. The man who killed V is named El Tim, and he did it to protect his friend Quando Rondo from King Von's attacks. Despite the fact that Quando Rondo didn't have a direct beef with Von or Durk, it appears that the young boy's actions would have an impact on him anyhow. On the night of November 6th, by pure coincidence, King Von and Kimo Rondo ended up at the same club in Atlanta. King Von and Durk were friends, but they ended up disagreeing over his relationship with NBA YoungBoy, who was like an older brother to Quando Rondo, spent some time there. Here is video footage of what happened. Quando Rondo was outside the club leaning against his car and waiting for one of his friends to come outside so they could leave, but King Val and his gang saw him and decided to fight. You can see him leaning against his car when a group of guys swarming Von starts punching him and Quando Rondo retreats. Then all hell breaks loose and L opens fire, hitting Von and then hitting the floor, while his friends try their best to remove him. Although everyone can see that Quando Rondo didn't start the feud or even kill Von Durk and his affiliates, they don't seem to see it that way in many ways. After V attacked him, Rondo was the victim, but since then there have been 2 attempts on his life, one outside of a club in 2021 and the second in 2022, when Durk allegedly placed a bounty on him. If this is true, Durk is the man at the back. These attempts to kill Quando Rondo may seem like a bit much, and the answer is yes, but it's possible that public pressure prompted Durk to exact revenge. When Von's death was announced, people started to wonder if Durk would stand by Von because his songs are all about gangster life, which led them to believe that Durk had to exact revenge for his friend's passing. The comments like this fueled the fire, reading, "I do agree." The lawyer handling the case stated that our complaint lays out that a $100,000 bounty was placed on the life of FBG Duck to have him killed, but it's not just Durk that they're after the entire OTF crew as well as anybody connected to them. The girlfriend is suing Lil Durk, alleging that he was the mastermind behind the shooting and that he put the bounty on Duck's head. It appears that he wasn't lying in his lyrics about being a bounty hunter. In addition to Durk and his record label OTF, the lawsuit names a long list of people they claim were involved in Duck's murder. But that's not all, let me explain. OTF is a gang in Durk's record label, but it also has partnerships with Sony and Interscope, 2 of the largest record labels in the world. If you're wondering how these 2 entities can be connected to this, the lawyer handling the case says that according to the lawyer handling the Duck case, they are guilty because they welcome musicians they know are involved in illegal activity. In other words, they are prioritizing profit over human lives. They want authenticity, which has led to these kinds of people entering the music industry and carrying out their activities, and record label companies are supporting it by funding it and creating brands for it. You have to acknowledge that he is correct. Gang violence has resulted in the deaths of several rappers in the past few years, and there's no way that record labels aren't aware of it when they're signing people. In any case, earlier this year, 6 men were found guilty of killing FBG Duck, but his mother and her attorney feel that's not enough and want to catch everyone involved, including Durk. Durk's attorney added, "That's where it crosses the line when you take it from the music and take it to the public in the streets and you kill someone." As of right now, neither Durk nor his record label associates have responded. When it comes to the reason behind the feud between FBG Duck and Lil Durk that resulted in his death, it all comes down to gang ties. Despite the fact that both men are from Chicago, they found themselves on opposing sides of a gang war. The 6 men found guilty of killing FBG Duck are known to be members of a gang known as the Black Disciples Oblak Branch. Duck's mother is suing all OTF personnel, claiming that Duck's murder was caused by a savage feud between Durk's Oblak faction of the Black Disciples and Duck's associates with the Tulia branch of the Gangster Disciples. The Gangster Disciples are another infamous Chicago gang that has been an enemy of the Black Disciples for many years, despite the fact that Duck was killed. This is the same neighborhood that both Durk and Von represented. Considering that real lives are lost behind this and that the majority of commenters were not raised in that setting, they are referring to the numerous trolls who attacked Durk and called him a coward for not seeking retribution. The comment then goes on to question the same thing, but Durk also takes it personally, manifesting that negative energy in his music when 80% of your songs are about killing your operations. The comment concludes with, "Durk ain't no comments like that," and many others raised doubts about whether Durk was truly talking about gangster life. In Gabbana shop, when a vehicle pulled up and shooters began firing, he, his girlfriend, and a buddy were standing outside the business. In the complaint, Duck was murdered and the other 2 were injured. Even though it was more than 4 years ago, Duck's mother claims that she never goes a day without thinking about him and the life that was taken from him. It is not surprising that she still grieves for her son's passing, especially since she believes the killer is still at large, but that could be altering both her and Duck. In one of his songs, Called Me Off, he discusses the problem of getting revenge for your fallen comrades. The song was released in 2021 at the height of the Von campaign slide, and Durk says, "If I die, just don't lie, man, you better slide. If you can't get the main, then you better get his guys." Summarizes the events that took place. One of the main individuals who was trolling Durk for not getting revenge for Von was Tekashi 69. In April 2022, Tekashi 69 released a song called Gene, in which he used the opportunity to make fun of Durk in the video. In a resurfaced interview with academics, it appears that Durk took the trolling personally, and based on his suspicious reaction to questions about it, the academics asked Durk what he thought of the slide for Von's message. comments, and this was his response. For some reason, I don't see them anymore, and I'm not sure why, but it's safe to assume that he was referring to the murder of El Pub. However, did you know that Durk isn't the only rapper he's dealing with? He's also accused of putting a bounty on another rapper, FBG Duck, on October 9th, 2024, just over a year ago. Durk is currently facing a legal battle for the Lopab murder for a higher lawsuit. The mother of FBG Duck, a Chicago rapper who was shot and killed on the Gold Coast in 2020, filed a lawsuit against Durk a week after he was arrested in connection with LPB's shooting. FBG Duck and Durk had a beef and frequently disparaged each other in songs. FBG Duck was killed a few months after V, but according to his mother, it was both Durk and V who put the hit out on him in August 2020 while he was visiting the Gold Coast and waiting outside a Douai. The focus of this case and Durk's second case, which alleges that he sent out a hit out in retaliation for Von's murder. But these two crimes aren't the only shootings that Durk and Vow are intimately associated with. There is another one that some believe Durk and Von collaborated on. The incident in Atlanta in February 2019, according to reports, the victim was shot during a robbery and the police at the time thought Durk and King Von were responsible. The shooting occurred in front of an eatery called the A. Short time after the shooting occurred, the police issued a warrant for Durk's arrest. At the time, the incident made headlines and was discussed on news channels worldwide. The prosecution and Varsity claimed that both Value and Durk were present at the crime scene and even claimed that Durk was the one who pulled the trigger. At the time a Georgia court pronounced him probably guilty, Durk even published a song called Turn Main in which he claims to be innocent and that he was going to come gently. Cause to arrest Durk and Vow in connection with the shooting, and their official charges were involvement in street gang activities, possession of a firearm. The situation drastically changed in 2023 when his mother began advocating against drill music, claiming it was a major factor in his death. She and her attorneys assert that drill music, specifically that released by Durk and King Vow, has exacerbated gang rivalry and is responsible for many shootings in Chicago. They even asserted that King Von's song Take Main to the O was a direct premonition of FBG Duck's death, even though he is no longer alive. Firearm during the commission of a felony, criminal attempt to commit murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. So yes, they had a ton of charges and things weren't looking good for them, especially since the prosecution claimed to have video evidence of Durk pulling the trigger at the time Chicago police were flying into Atlanta in an attempt to see Durk in court, where they claim to have overwhelming evidence linking him to the crime. They say the victim's name was Alexander Witherspoon, who was also known to the police and the authorities. Witnesses also claimed that Durk had not only shot the victim but also stolen $30,000 in cash and attempted to rob a car. The case against a rapper accused in a shooting outside the Varsity will proceed today. According to the prosecution, Durk and Von went to Atlanta and shot him in the leg in an attempt to rob him. Here is the prosecution discussing this in court. They were hanging out and went to a studio to create music when these famous photos of Durk and Von in court together were taken. They were forced to hear the evidence against them, and police informed the judge that Von Durk and the victim visited a nightclub and a gas station before arriving in the parking lot of the restaurant known as. They retaliated, however, by hiring a Chicago police officer to testify at the trial and make the claim that Durk and Von were both members of Chicago gangs. A month after the trial, they were released on bond, but amazingly, they both got away with it. In October 2022, it was announced that the charges against Durk had been dropped. The detective who was asked to testify said that it wasn't uncommon for Chicago gang activity to occur in places outside of the city, like Atlanta. The judge appeared to agree and agreed to move the case forward at the time. In a statement, the court stated that the facts of this case have been reviewed and that although it appears that there was probable cause for the defendant's arrest, the district attorney's decision at this time is not to prosecute Durk. It's odd that it took 3 years to decide, but V's murder may have contributed. The official reason they dropped the charges was prosecutorial discretion. Had this to say about it, although it took 3 years for the state to make the right decision, in the end it was made, and Mr. Banks can now move on from this incident. When news reporters sat down to interview Durk, he talked about how he changed his ways the moment he learned that there was an arrest warrant out for him and that he was actually on tour and had a war. I returned right away. It appears that Durk was able to persuade the world at the time. Although it didn't age well at the time, it worked, and he was able to persuade everyone that since he had succeeded as a rapper and was now worth millions of dollars, he had put his gang affiliations behind it. However, as we now know, that was probably not the case, or as it turns out, there is an argument that Durk was done with the situation. He was innocent, and remarks about it seemed to echo that sentiment. Free Durk. Streets, and in some respects, he was a victim himself. Despite being the accused man, Durk was also a victim. When you really dig into it, you can see why he went down that path. Let's start with Lil Durk's cousin, who was killed in 2014 OTF. Behind many of these shootings, you have to keep in mind that he is also a victim of the environment he grew up in, since he was a child, many of his closest Friends and family members have been killed due to gang violence. The younger relative of Lil Durk was shot and murdered. Lil, like Durk, was a rising Chicago. The University of Here's what the prosecution claims happened next. The chain was snatched off his neck, $30,000 was stolen from him, and the car he was driving was stolen. They then claim that you saw Durk on Sarah shooting the gun, and that missed her. Banks' arm was out the window, firing multiple shots at the victim in the direction of the victim's lawyer. Durk had some things to say about that, calling it a celebrity witch hunt if it weren't for these two people's celebrity status, the prosecution charges. Chicago rapper whose life was cruelly ended because of the same gang feud that would claim the lives of several others. According to reports, Lil was sitting in his car outside of his block in Southside Chicago when someone approached him and began shooting. At the time, OTF was still relatively new, and Durk, who founded it, must have been devastated to hear the news. Lil's real name was MacArthur Swindle, and he was only 21 when he was killed. He and Durk had grown up together. Things in that region didn't appear to be as terrible as they would become when he was young, in his early 20s, but authorities thought this was a random shooting and indicated it could have been related to his aunt's gang. Lil was on the verge of becoming the next major rap artist in Chicago and said that he was slain just after he was about to release some new songs. According to his studio manager, this would be his big break, and he was one of those young people who saw a chance to further his career with his music. Lil and Durk were working very. Things were only going to get worse for Durk, though, when on March 27, 2015, about a year after he lost his cousin, Durk's manager OTF Chino was shot. At the time, a young Durk had just formed his music crew and was focused on using his songs to pull him and his friends out of the hood. Unfortunately, Lil, one of the group's most promising members, was murdered. As you can imagine, Durk and the entire OTF crew were devastated shortly after the murder. Durk opened up about it and how much of a positive impact OTF Chino had on his music, saying he'll be involved in everything LP and my manager D thing. They really put everything together, they formatted everything. I would just give them the names and they would format everything. He was also shot while sitting in a parked car in Chicago. He was only 24 years old and was the man behind one of hip-hop's most promising up-and-coming rappers. Durk then talked about how, despite losing his manager, he would keep pushing no matter what. Shortly after that, he blew up and became one of the biggest rappers in the world, and we know he did just that. He said that no matter what, we just keep our heads up and keep going through the music, because if we stop, we're messing everything up. Knew, therefore it was difficult for him, but he claimed to have used their deaths as motivation to keep working hard. He said that if we stop, we'll give everyone what they want. He went on to say that he cries in private and that we should just cry in the room by ourselves and leave the room being happy. It must have been difficult for him, and while it doesn't excuse his alleged crimes, it does reveal a different side of him. Many people were making fun of him for not actually being a killer, but perhaps he never wanted to be and would have preferred to simply pursue. On their way back to San Diego, they boarded a plane and headed back to Chicago as if nothing had happened, but history has a way of catching up. On October 23, 2024, years after that night, the 5 OTF members were arrested in Chicago. Durk attempted to flee only after their arrest, but he was unaware that one of his own crew members had been watching him and providing the feds with information throughout the entire time through leaked court documents. On the inside, an informant known as OTF Jam had said to have been hooked up for years, providing government investigators with direct access to evidence. According to reports, Jam was freed in 2022 after serving 12 years for attempted murder, but instead of remaining silent, he turned on the federal authorities and gave them information that connected Durk to the murder. For many people's higher plan, Jam and Durk were friends, and when Jam was serving in 2013, Durk clarified what OTF was and mentioned how Lil was a part of it. We used to call ourselves OTF, and we used to just say OTF. We used to say only the family, but it was too much, so we just started saying OTF. As you can imagine, Durk was trying his hardest to help get his cousin noticed at the time, so his death hit him hard. At the time, people were speculating about what OTF actually was. Was it a gang or just a music group? The lawsuit also claims that Durk sent the accused killers text messages, one of which allegedly said, "Don't book no flights under no names involved with me," and that's not the case. A 12-year sentence for attempted murder, Durk had supported him when it counted most. His treachery by snitching cuts deep. Durk took the initiative and created Jam's necessities were met, his legal bills were paid. He was given a home and a vehicle, and he even dropped over $50,000 in cash to keep him afloat. You understand what I mean when I say that he doesn't need to beg __. We're not going to get into all of that, but he made sure to make it possible for me to be straight. And it didn't end there. Durk was constantly hyping Jam up on live streams to show public support for his guy. So tell them, count this much, he said he gave you $50, bro. What's happening? Jam's treachery was just one aspect of the storm Durk faced as the legal hits continued to come in on November 8th, 2024. But you know it's insane up there with all this sneak diss and online games and all this money doing something like that. He was first charged with using interstate facilities to commit murder, but federal prosecutors increased the pressure by filing additional accusations against him, with the addition of one count for conspiracy and another for utilizing, carrying, and discharging for hire has now expanded to 3 charges: firearms, including a machine gun, in connection with a violent crime that resulted in death. With these new charges, Durk's battle has become much more difficult, but one question remains: why did Lil Durk allegedly target Quijo in the first place? Prosecutors claim that Lil Durk wanted Quijo dead. The answer is King Von, Durk's close friend. For those who don't know, the two grew close in the heart of the Chicago streets. Living in the notorious O Block, one of Chicago's most violent neighborhoods characterized by violence and ongoing loss, like Durk, Von understood what it meant to lose friends to the streets and to have run-ins with the law, which is what initially brought them together. Growing up in Inglewood on the South Side, an area known for its high crime and gang activity, King Val faced hardships most people wouldn't survive. The resilience of one another. Durk, a well-known figure in Chicago's rap scene, saw V's untapped talent and potential and took him under his wing to help him establish himself in the music industry. However, their relationship went far beyond music. It was based on survival and loyalty in a world where trust was scarce, and they supported one another through thick and thin. He had a full backstory, so you understand what I mean when I say that Durk even called Von his twin, implying a brotherhood that went beyond blood. Another side to Durk, whose songs often focus on murder and gang warfare, it seems that this was the start of a new chapter in his life. Since a year after the album's release, he celebrated his criminal history. Just under a month before his arrest, on September 24, 2024, Durk was rejoicing and seemed ecstatic when he posted the news on X, writing that everyone should be given second chances at life since it all depends on how they choose to use it. Thank God my record has been cleared of all charges and I am not a criminal. Nevertheless, he wrote, who would have thought he then wrote, I want to thank everyone who helped push my vision forward. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. His criminal history dates back to 2011. When he was arrested for possessing a firearm and then arrested again for the same crime after being released on probation. However, it appears that he chose to concentrate on his music and avoided trouble until 2019 when he and V were arrested for the Atlanta shooting. Really wanted to be a gangster and would have rather concentrated on his music for the time being. But he will have to deal with the allegations against him regardless of whether they were motivated by gang rivalry or retaliation, since there is enough proof that he was the individual. If you like this video and want to witness more of the most bizarre tales in rap, click one of the cards on the screen right now. People seek justice behind the deaths of many rappers.